Hey guys, I'm back after a long hiatus of not making videos. I've just not really been buying books, which is weird for me, but I have been utilizing my library a whole bunch. Actually checking out more books than one can actually read. But hey, I'm not paying anything for them, so it doesn't matter. I can take them back, and if I want to check them out again, I can check them out again. But I have library books. I actually have some that I did buy. And then I will talk to you about what I am currently reading and what I plan to read for Nonfiction November. So that's kind of going to be all like the haul. Will take care of that. I will do the ones that I bought first and get those out of the way. The first one I actually didn't buy. I took a bunch to little free libraries around town and then in the town I grew up in, and I didn't know that little free library was there. My sister and I were going shopping, came back, and she pointed out to me, so we stopped on the way back home and I found one. Well, I felt like super guilty because I didn't have one to put in. So the next weekend I went to visit my mom. I made sure to make up for it. I put like 7 or 8 books in. But I found the Firemen's Fair by Josephine Humphries, and it takes place in Charleston, which I love any Charleston Low Country books. It was Hurricane, I can't remember. But basically the man is having to rebuild his house after a hurricane and kind of evaluating his life and him not having a, significant other. And he finds someone who kind of helps him rebuild his life. And I read it to my sister and she goes, "That sounds like a Nicholas Sparks book, so you're going to have to let me borrow it." But yeah, I just had never heard of it. And I said to her, I go, "That's from a library book sale." She said, "Well, how do you know?" "I know these stickers. I've seen them for years." This one I actually got from Amazon. It's only like $10. It's a nice hardcover. Hocus Pocus. Yes, I did watch the movie this year. I only read the original. I didn't read the sequel in this because I started it on Halloween and finished it yesterday, and I waited too long, so I'm just gonna not spoil myself and reread next year and then read the sequel. So that's that. And then the Kiss Quotient I got from Book Depository. I've seen this everywhere and I had to have it. It was cheaper to get it from Book Depository than in the US. Had I been patient, they have it at the library. It has been sitting in the new release section untouched. Could have saved some money. I am trying to be better about that. This one, again, has made all the rounds. Surely you know what it's about. High time for Stella Lane to settle down and find a husband, or so her mother tells her. She has Asperger's and struggles socially, and the fact of dating. Of course, she does find a man. So we'll see how this is. I've heard good things about it, so it'll be a cute little cozy weekend read it sometime. It's not very long, about 314 pages. And then in the same order, I got another copy of Gone with the Wind. This is her green party dress. I just thought it was so adorable, and that's going to look so cute on a shelf. I had to have it. Didn't need it, but I wanted it. I think it was like maybe $6 or $7, if that. And then these last two I just got from Ollie's. A Low Country Wedding by Mary Alice Monroe. I've never read anything by her because it's low country. Sullivan's Island. I will read it even if it is a romance novel, and I don't do them. I might save it for next summer. And then White Fern by V.C. Andrews, which is a sequel to My Sweet Audrina, which I have had since high school and have never read, so I'm going to have to. And those were just $2 a piece. That's partially why I bought them. And then we have the library books. I had this on my Amazon wish list, and it's $40. They're $25 on Amazon. And I kept looking at it. I don't want to pay that much for it. I don't want to pay for that. And when I was doing my trolling of the library card catalog, I found it. I was like, oh, cool. So, Momofuku, it's David Chang and Peter Meehan. Momofuku is, I don't remember. It's either 1 or 2 restaurants in New York. David Chang has a series on Netflix that my husband and I watched. And that's why I had it on my wish list. And it's good, but I'm glad that I checked it out at the library, because this is not something that I would keep beyond thumbing through it, reading it, taking it back. I did find it interesting, though, because he did on the show talk about, and it's in here, about Benton's Bacon. And Benton's Bacon, if you have never heard of it, is amazing, wonderful bacon. And it comes out of Madisonville, Tennessee, which is a sneeze away from where my mom was born and grew up as a child. And they have, I don't say world famous, but country famous bacon that's expensive in all these finer establishments buy this specially smoked and cured bacon for their recipes. And let me tell you, it is worth occasionally paying the extra to get good bacon. There's a place here called the Tomato Head that puts it on their sandwiches and on their pizzas, and it's amazing. I can't find it in the town that I live in now, but I can find it in the town that I grew up in, and I can drive to the actual Benton's Bacon and buy Benton's Bacon. It's not that far away, but it's in here outlines the whole smoking process and how many months and months it takes, and that it's like a year to train somebody to make it properly. So it's that special. So if you ever come across something on a menu somewhere with Benton's Bacon, try it. And then I'll show you the 2 fiction, and then I'll go to the nonfiction, which is my nonfiction November. I have 5. Lofty goal, but I'm going to try. Which with the other 2, 7 books to read by December the 1st. We'll try. I started Christie a couple of days ago. Catherine Marshall. I, again, have had this old beat-up paperback since high school when the book was created in the TV show. I never watched it. My sister did. And it's okay. I'm only like 76 pages in. I think I probably would have really loved it had I read it at that point in time, but when I can sit down and concentrate, I might enjoy it more. It's just that I've had like all this stuff on my brain, and I've got to finish this, and I've got to take these back, you know, so time to relax. And then The Girl on Legere Street, I don't know how to say that, Karen White. This is the second in a series. Basically, the main character is a real estate agent in Charleston, South Carolina, and she goes to meet a man. I'm telling you about the first book. They'll segue into this. Goes to meet a man about a house on Trad Street. Basically to say, hey, I want to buy this property, either to renovate it or tear it down for another house to be built. And it's kind of a quirky, kooky conversation, kind of not even talking about the house itself. So she leaves this meeting with him very confused as to what just happened. Well, a couple of days later, the man dies. But in the time period between their conversation and him dying, he puts her in his will as the sole executor to his estate, providing that she live in the house for a year and fully renovate it. She's like, what is going on? I don't want to do this. Come to find out, this house is haunted by that man's deceased mother. There's a story behind why she died, how she died, and that there are supposed Confederate diamonds that are somewhere in the house. That's why there's a ghost and a bad ghost that's trying to keep them away. It sounds really weird and normally not anything that I would read, but it was done so well that I went ahead and got the second book. And I don't know anything about the second book, so I'm going to keep it a surprise for myself. Now, the nonfiction, and I'll try to make the rest of this short. All Over But the Shoutin' by Rick Bragg. I just finished last week, I believe. Best Cook in the World, which just came out, I believe, in April, and I loved it. Loved it. It's just recipes, stories behind the recipes, his family, stories behind when they would eat it, or tips on how to cook it, collard greens, poke salad, you know, ham and red eye gravy, biscuits, you know, Southern, across the board, beans, cornbread, stuff I grew up on. And it's fabulous. I had it on my wish list for the ebook for months on end. I swear to you, I put it on there in June and I seemed no closer to the beginning. And as a fluke, I found that there was a copy at the library, and I snatched it up and loved it. So it's one of those that if eventually I find a cheap copy, I'm going to get it, because I will want to reread it and I want it for my own. But this one's just his family story, basically growing up in northern Alabama in poverty, the struggles that they had, family struggles, personally, financially. His writing is great. I do recommend him. Then we have The Real Lolita, The Kidnapping of Sally Horner, and Novel That Scandalized the World by Sarah Weinman. I read Rust and Stardust, which is the fictionalized. It is fiction, but it's based off of the story. Uses her name, uses the kidnapper's name. Everything is true. But it's, you know, nobody really knows what happened in that time period of her being kidnapped. But it was so well written, and it wasn't sensationalized and gross, like in-depth descriptions of her being raped. No. It's just emotions and feelings of her mother, her sister, her, what they're going through, the people that are trying to help her escape. If you haven't read it, I do recommend it. Rust and Stardust. Sorry, I cannot think of the author's name at this point in time. But this is the true story and the sad tragedy of her life. So that is Nonfiction November, as well as All Over But the Shouting. And then we have Code Girls, The Untold Story of the American Women Codebreakers of World War II by Liza Mundy. Honestly, I don't think I'd heard of this, and it came out, I do believe, last year, October of 2017, so a year ago. And normally I would be all on this, so I was tickled to find it today at the library. And then this one I saw on somebody's channel that they're doing it for Nonfiction November. I don't think it's April with Getting Hooker with it. No. Who is it? Oh, it's going to drive me crazy. I've seen so many like Nonfiction November videos. It'll come to me. Anyway, it's The Cadaver King and the Country Dentist, a true story of injustice in the American South. I never would have ever thought that they would have this at my library. Like, I have a small library. And it was over in the new releases, and I snatched it. So, this one is basically, after two 3-year-old girls were raped and murdered in rural Mississippi, law enforcement pursued and convicted 2 innocent men, Kennedy Brewer and Levon Brooks. Together they spent a combined 30 years in prison before finally being exonerated in 2008. So basically the cover-ups that convicted them falsely and held them in prison for so long. So this sounds good. And then the last one I'll show you, I'm reading the ebook. It was good that I procrastinated on it so that I'm reading it in November for Nonfiction November. I'm 24% of the way through, and I'm going to see if we can see it without it being blurry. Nope. Let me try this again. Cover. It is What Stands in a Storm, 3 Days in the Worst Superstorm to Hit the South Tornado Alley by Kim Cross. And I did not even know that I looked at the bottom and it said forward by Rick Bragg, who is who I was just telling you about, the best cook in the world. I love books like this, and I will probably sit in a minute and read a bunch. But I was talking to my husband, and I couldn't remember if this was a storm. When I was at my old house, we had storms, and in our backyard found a canceled check from Chattanooga that had blown from Chattanooga to Maryville, Tennessee. Okay, that's like, I can't tell you precise miles, but 100 plus miles away that this storm blew this check. We didn't have any damage, but I remember it. We didn't have, the destruction that they had in Alabama, Mississippi, I believe Georgia, and then the southern part of Tennessee. It was crazy. That's all. I thought it would be a short video, but I don't know how to do those. I don't have any plans to buy any books because it is Christmas time and I have some more birthdays, so any books that I have will be library books, and I will share a library book haul with you. But please let me know if you've read any of these and what you are reading for Nonfiction November, if you plan on reading for Nonfiction November. If not, just whatever you're reading at this time and what you have planned. It can be anything. It can be the back of a cereal box, or I don't know. It can be anything. But I've got a lot of reading to do. So I'm going to do that, and you guys enjoy your reading and your weekend. Bye.